I always like loved politics. As a young person, I had very left-wing politics through high school, through the first part of college. In college, I became, disillusioned with left-wing politics as I traveled around the world, like realizing that these ideas, like when they hit contact with reality anywhere in the world, are a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And so, like, I went from like Zoran Mamdani politics to just like kind of exiting through disillusionment because I had seen so much. I've seen enough. I've watched it. I've studied it. I've experienced it, and also got a taste for the actual kind of culture of left-wing politics, which is just an ugly, degrading, drab, and dismal culture. And so I just was like, as a young guy graduating college, I want to see the world. Whatever I can do to get out into the furthest reaches of planet Earth, that's what I want to do. My ticket to do that was this documentary filmmaking gig. And then, I had opportunities. I worked on some films. I directed some films. I was making enough money where I could support myself, where I was, doing fairly well, and could travel internationally, could travel domestically, see, some incredible things, incredible experiences, like have this like adventure, right? The 20s are a big adventure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my politics shifted over this decade, shifted right. Read a lot of conservative literature, conservative philosophy, conservative social science in particular that was really persuasive to me.
Was there a specific like person or like piece of writing that like unlocked something for you?
Yeah, I think, when I was directing a film about American poverty in like these 3 lost American cities, and the writings of Charles Murray were very influential.
Interesting.
Not the bell curve, which is like
Coming
the
apart?
one that like coming apart, what it means to be a libertarian, losing ground.
Yeah.
Then you go back to like Nisbet, you go back to all of the like kind of Ivy League conservative social scientists that were doing great work at that time, in the past. Yeah, Moynihan. Oh, well, I have like mixed feeling, love-hate with Moynihan, but that kind of tradition, right? Where it was like essentially the conservative critique of the Great Society. And it was like, oh, wow, this actually completely explains what I'm observing on the ground in this like multi-year documentary shoot in these kind of dismal and forgotten places.
Yep.
And so it's like, oh, cool, I'm making this film and now like I'm a conservative. And so navigating this film through the documentary world was such a challenge. It was just an awful experience. And then like word got out, like Rufo's some kind of conservative or right winger. And all of my opportunities then just like disappeared overnight. So already the industry was going like, oh, kind of white guy. This is like a little bit more difficult, but like fine, whatever, you make it work. But then it was like, oh no, right winger, like boom. I had like grant makers who were basically like, oh, you're on the blacklist.
Yep.
I had contractors, guys that I'd worked with over the years and hired to do, production or editorial for me. Send me messages. Hey, I heard you're like a conservative now. Like I can never work with you again. You're just like a terrible person. Like have some heckin' decency,
Yeah, but like a lot of, so I know people who were in a maybe similar position at that time. Maybe they were always on the right. Maybe they had transitioned into the right, somewhat similar trajectory. But if they were like filmmakers or musicians or like novelists, and I know these people personally, they just decided, I'm just going to hide my politics. I'm just not going to talk about it. I will embed this kind of messaging and these themes within my work, but I understand like being explicit about it is going to, first of all, jeopardize all these opportunities I might have for the reasons you just stated, but also like could potentially turn off audiences. Like audiences are so allergic to taking on any kind of conservative message unless they're already conservative audiences. There's this asymmetry where conservatives will consume left-wing media, knowing it's left-wing media and left-wing art, but it doesn't go the other way. So, so my question here is like, why not just say nothing? Like, why did you feel compelled to say anything?
I just like temperamentally, you can't live that way, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, I
you
have
can.
to like hide all of my.
Do.
I did it for a while. And then it just became untenable, and it just was like I could feel it limiting my life experience, limiting my intellectual curiosity. It was just like wearing, a huge, like carrying around a huge weight at all times. And it's like, this is not good. I'm not actually saying what I believe. I'm not actually representing my opinion. And it was kind of an amazing transition, whereas I became more outspoken, never like polemical at first, but just kind of gently in the most like New York Times conservative columnist kind of manner, like introducing these ideas into my kind of professional circles. And it was like, no matter how gently you approach it, it's like met with extreme hostility. And so it's like, all right, well, if this is how it's going to go, let's just do it. And so I decided, again, like similar to you, already had kids, already had, kind of a life, already had a career. Just said, all right, let's just like burn the boats and let's do this and let's do the politics. And for me, it wasn't like start a publishing house. For me, it was get involved in political life, get involved in kind of political intellectual work. And my experience was like, all right, it was in retrospect great. You make the plunge. It's very hard. You get beat up. You get put through the ringer. You run through the gauntlet, whatever metaphor you want to use. And then you kind of emerge on the other side. And for me, it was more activism. For you, it was like more literary publishing. But you realize like how kind of phony and artificial your former world was. It's like a world of managed opinion. Yeah. And there's this kind of, unspoken web of opinions that are acceptable, and they move a little bit this way, they scurry a little bit that way. And you live in this carefully managed world that on the surface is creative, right? It's filmmaking, it's English department, it's literature. But like, it's actually the least creative and most conventionally bound world. And then you feel like so grateful. You're like, I'm out of it. I don't have to like pretend. I don't have to suck up to these people. I remember like, you're like, oh, I'm sucking up to like the admissions guy at like the Toronto Film Festival. Who cares? Right. This guy's a loser. I can't believe I sucked up to that guy.
Well, that's the thing. It's like so hollow, and there's nothing. There's no life in it. It is, as you say, like this kind of managerial sort of space. It is overmanaged. It's incurious, etc. But and this is like the thing that is worth like being introspective about and interrogating is. It still does, I think, have this kind of incentive architecture that keeps you in place. So it's the money. There's a certain kind of status laundering and sort of economy of prestige that these places can give you and a certain amount of stability and comfort. And so it is easy to tell yourself a story like, I'm just going to go along to get along. I'm going to keep my opinions to myself or only express them in this very mild way. Yeah, esoterically. Because what I want is just like a decent life, man. I just want to get along. I want to be able to pay my mortgage. I want my kids to have like a social life where when I show up at like the party, people aren't like looking at you weird, like you have a third, like three heads or something, which, and so my question is like, yes, there's something incredibly liberating and has been for me too. When you just take the plunge and you just go, it's this leap of faith that I'm glad I've taken. But I think it's a mistake to also say that there aren't like social costs and this thing doesn't have social costs. And so I'm curious in your experience, as much as you want to talk about it, like, did you experience those social costs, and how do you like sort of balance the ledger between what you're able to do now versus those costs that you have to incur just by sort of being out there and saying the things you want to say? Or does that even cross your mind?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it crosses your mind because it's like punching you right in the face, and you just like you have to react to it. It is the reality that you live in, and then you have to figure out what to do about it. I just think like ultimately, if you want to be a normie, you want to have a job and a kind of steady life. You don't want to rock the boat. You want to keep your opinions mostly to yourself and show up at the baseball game, kind of without a second thought from anybody. Like that's totally fine. Yeah. But you should just like start a business or sell insurance or, become a product manager at Google or do whatever. I think that if you have committed to a life of in the arts, a life of the mind, a life of intellectual or political work, like that actually demands something different, and it demands a kind of conviction that the other professions do not necessarily demand. And so it's like, yeah, if you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm just going to get a job in corporate. I actually respect that. I think that's quite noble. It's quite sensible. But if it's like, hey, I'm in the documentary world or now I'm in the political world, like you have to actually say what you think. You have to be willing to pay the price. And the social costs for me were like enormous. Like you actually sacrifice an entire life. You like my social life, my family life, my like geographical life is totally different. It went through a complete transformation. And at the beginning, it was very hard. I felt resentful. I felt, frightened at times. You're getting like this full onslaught of intimidation that literally shows up at your doorstep. When I was living in Seattle. And then you just have to decide, am I just going to shut up and go back to the defensive crouch and hope that, nobody bothers me? Or am I going to do what needs to be done? And for me, that was committing, saying, hey, no going back, building a professional career that was in politics, that was somewhat robust or even anti-fragile to the various attempts to kind of undercut you. And then it was like moving. We moved to this like amazing small town. We now live on like a old farm property. We have new friends, new commitments, new kind of educational approach with our kids, new city. And in one sense, it's a lot, right? It's a huge change.
Yeah.
It's a huge sacrifice, but then you get through it and you're like, that wasn't a sacrifice at all. And actually what I sacrificed was so trivial. I can't believe I was even scared of losing it at one time, because what I have on the other side is so much better. New friends, new opportunities, new business, new community. It's like, wow, thank God.